Ladies and gentlemen, returning to stand-up comedy for the first time since his Orbit the Earth tour, please put your hands together for Gibbs.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here tonight. You guys, I just spent the last 24 hours orbiting the Earth, and I am so tired, I called it a day. I got kicked out of a buffet restaurant today. They made me leave, but I still wasn't full. So, as I was coming onto the show tonight, a few astronauts bumped into me. It's okay though, because they apologized. Speaking of food, did you know my first restaurant just closed down? They said the food was great, but there was no atmosphere.
Okay, listen, Gibbs, I'm sorry, but these jokes are pretty rough. Do you have any better material?
No.
Oh, no, Gibbs, don't be sad. Listen,
I'm not sad. I'm just going through a phase.
Just cue the music. Hello and welcome. I am Jeff. This is Tabletop Toolbox. And the moon is back where it belongs, which means I can finally tell you about Lunar Rush Innovations, the first expansion to Lunar Rush by Stephen Skippy Brown and Dead Alive Games. I always struggle a bit with making content specifically for an expansion, as it always seems a bit odd to just talk about the added elements of the expansion and skipping over the core game. Of course, I also realize that some folks might be hearing about Lunar Rush here for the first time, so I certainly don't want to leave them out in the cold. So, if you don't mind, spare me a few brief moments to provide a quick summary of what Lunar Rush does, and if you're just here for the expansion, feel free to jump to this timestamp. Lunar Rush is an engine-building, worker placement, resource gathering, market manipulation game set on Earth's solo-orbiting satellite, the Moon. After bidding on turn order, players will make arrangements to move construction materials to and valuable resources from the Moon, which they'll do by choosing two travel routes between the two celestial bodies. These three routes carry varying amounts of goods, but take varying numbers of rounds to reach the targeted destination. Goods are transported to and from your lunar base, represented by this player board in front of you, onto which you'll be building and or upgrading various facilities. These facilities provide food, energy, and more construction materials, but are also used to extract and possibly refine raw materials from the moon's surface. In the lunar phase of each of the game's 7 rounds, players will simultaneously place workers onto these facilities to produce goods and resources, upgrade those facilities by installing or flipping over these cards, and then load any Earthbound resources onto any awaiting ships. These return trips work the same way, carrying more goods in exchange for longer journeys. And that's especially important here, as when ships arrive at Earth, they'll be able to sell any lunar resource on the market. This market board determines the value of each resource, and that value declines each time a resource is sold. So timing is critical, especially since your money is your score. There are a few other things I'll gloss over, like these powerful but expensive gold modules you can add to your base, beginner cards that provide some guidance and rewards to new players, challenge cards that help even out the balance between experienced and beginner players, and faction cards, which provide slight variances in the rules for each player to create a little asymmetry. And that is a perfect spot for me to step into innovations. You see, the original rulebook provided a bit of backstory for each of the corporations vying for economic supremacy in Lunar Rush. But these faction cards weren't actually connected to any specific corporation, nor did they tie into any of those unique backstories. But now there are 4 unique player boards, plus a new 5th player expansion with an original and asymmetrical player board and components. And so there you go, asymmetrical factions in Lunar Rush Innovations, coming to a Kickstarter near you. Thanks for watching, folks, and... What? You want to learn about those factions? Oh, sure, yeah, okay, let's do that. Let's start with Cascor, which has upgraded beyond mere astronauts to augmented cyborgs. These guys are pretty expensive to keep alive from round to round, and you're maxed at 6 of them instead of 10, but they generate huge amounts of resources on each of their associated modules. Based on my initial experience, I'd say these guys are the easy faction to start off with. They're just an amped up version of the original worker, so you'll have to be a bit more measured with your population growth on the moon, but you'll be well rewarded for your efforts if you manage your base wisely. On the other hand, you could ignore food requirements completely if you instead decide to rely on robots at the hands of the Neuro Corporation. Neuro provides you with not 6, not 10, but up to 20 autonomous robots you can send to the moon, as well as ample facilities for those robots to work at, provided you can keep up with their lofty energy requirements. You'll have to spend energy at the end of each lunar phase to recharge any robots used during that phase, placing them to the left of the provided charge status token on your player board. These guys are also pretty fun to play with, but be warned, they require an abundance of these blue tech cubes and aren't able to produce enough on the moon on their own. So be sure to provide frequent shipments of tech cubes from Earth, or look for special gold modules that can help compensate for those shortages. Also, don't make the mistake I did and waste a bunch of time sending habitation components from Earth. They're robots. They don't need habitation components. Of course, maybe you'd rather do things the old-fashioned human way and support your existing astronauts with some specialized subject matter experts. Minor Inca modules include worker spots that can only be worked by these highly trained individuals, but experience doesn't necessarily come cheap. For the moment any of these specialized workers leave the surface of the Earth, they'll cost you money each round, which means you might need to consider sending your minor Inca workers, possibly a play on words of minor inconvenience, back to Earth when you no longer need them, or have one hell of a production facility on the moon to offset those costs. Now, obviously this entire game is rooted in a theme of science, but ironically the Shui Guo Corporation is the only one with a science resource. They will automatically gain science each round and can produce more from the R&D lab. Science can be spent to research up to 2 specialized technologies from a deck unique to the Shui Guo Corporation. You can cycle out your technologies in a way that, again, makes timing very important. Maybe early on you can transmute some abundant resources into ones less easy to obtain, only to then switch out for a wormhole to immediately send a large supply of valuable minerals directly to the selling floor. These guys can be some real sneaky little bastards. But maybe, just maybe, you fancy yourself more of a risk taker. In which case, the Cullen Ventures Corporation will be just your speed. While these guys use the same workers found in the base game, their modules are a chaos factory of randomness. Nearly every spot in their base generates a varying number of resources obtained by rolling a pair of dice for each assigned worker. I don't usually put much opinion in these videos, but I will tell you that these guys are not for me, as I'm not much of a dice chucker fan. But there is the ability to spend energy to adjust your rolled values, and workers can be reused on a different spot if a dice roll results in a goose egg of resources. But still, your success or failure at the helm of Cullen Ventures is mostly going to be determined by a pair of these. Then again, now is probably a good time to mention that all of this expansion material is still in the prototype phase, so really any of this is still subject to change. Speaking of change, this expansion also includes a few mini modules to further tweak the original gameplay, like this deck of event cards. One of these is revealed at the start of each round, but the first one doesn't go into effect until the 3rd round, so you'll always have a bit of advance notice as to what's coming. And that's good, as these cards are humorously divided into good, neutral, and bad events, and you're welcome to use them in any distribution you'd like. Even with the advance notice, these can still toss quite the monkey wrench into your gears, as some of them boost or nerf certain resources, which can help or hurt you depending on how you've already built up your base. What shouldn't hurt you are the awards and milestone cards, which can provide some extra points, which of course is money, throughout the game. These milestone cards award points once per game when one or more players achieves the goal, and award cards provide extra endgame scoring based on a variety of criteria. I've always enjoyed every time I've sat down to play Lunar Rush. I'm not a big market manipulation gamer, but I love the engine and base building simultaneous play, and the decision as to which ship to catch a ride on is one that still challenges me to this day. The asymmetrical player factions here were a logical next step for the game, though by now you've probably seen that these factions vary in terms of difficulty and even risk versus reward payout. I would challenge experienced players to help out new players by giving them the reins of factions such as Casco or Nero to help level the playing field. I also like the event cards and how they can be customized for a more pleasant or more punishing experience. To learn more about Lunar Rush and its new expansion, head on over to the Kickstarter page, to which I'll post a link in this video's description. Until then, folks.
Excuse me? Can I try one more joke?
Yeah, sure, Gibbs, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I hate it when people ask me to recommend a good barber, you know?
Why is that, Gibbs?
Because I don't get my hair cut. I wax. You get it?
Cheers, folks.